is Monday. I'm Scotty. That's Motty. Yes, we are going to be talking about it because everybody's talking about it, so why would we not? This whole INEOS debacle has been dragged out longer than the 100 Years' War. It's just going on and on and on. INEOS do not want Ten Hag. It's pretty obvious because, you know, the reports that he was talking to Thomas Tuchel earlier on this week and the rumours before the FA Cup final that they don't want him. So if they don't want Ten Hag, can he possibly do a job if they can't get anyone else? Or can they get anyone else that will make Manchester United fans happy? We'll get into that as soon as you take your finger and press subscribe and like right now.
Did you know the 100 Years' War weren't 100 years, it was more?
What? You just rounded it?
It was 116 years.
Why?
They just couldn't stop fighting. They couldn't get on.
Well, why did you call it 116 Wars?
I don't know, 100 Years' War sounds better, doesn't it? The 116 Years' War. You just may as well call it 100 Years'
Can
War.
Can you imagine like the debate when they sat around the table? What are we going to call this one?
Well, why do you call it the 116 Years' War?
What was the War with the Roses? What was that over, like flowers and stuff?
Yeah, it was. That was like the House of Lancaster and the House of York. That was like Richard III and all that lot. Do you know what I mean? Princes in the Tower and all that jazz, yeah. Just like princes and that.
I can't be asked for the medieval. The
medieval ones are long, aren't they? They're horrible as well,
I'm all for the Roman Empire and all that sort of stuff.
Really?
I like all that.
Do you?
I like Roman
I like
history.
the more modern ones. What's your favourite war?
The Great War.
The Great War?
Yeah, it's called Great for a reason.
I don't know. It felt like the Great War felt like The Godfather 1. World War 2 felt like Godfather 2.
Yeah, well, The Godfather 1's better.
Do you reckon?
I think so, yeah. I loved De Niro in number 2, and it's a brilliant film.
Yeah.
But I just think it gets a bit convoluted with the whole his name's going to escape. Hyman Roth scenario. I think that just drags on. It drags on and on and on, much like this INEOS saga with Ten Hag. What are they doing? Get in the comments and tell us what your thoughts. Are they turning it into as much a circus as the Glazers did? Like, they obviously don't want Ten Hag. Everyone knows that. Even Ten Hag on his sunbed doesn't know that. Doesn't know that. Who'd you get?
This is the thing, right? This is the part of the issue, right? None of the sort of potential candidates fill us with much confidence or much optimism. And this is what me and you've been saying for a little while. And every time you suggest someone and think of someone who, you know, would be a good option, then they're sort of taking off the potential list of candidates. So at one point, I remember a little while ago, you were saying Nagelsmann, and then that's obviously not happening now.
Yeah.
I think he signed a new deal, didn't he, with Germany? Then it was okay. There was talk of maybe Kieran McKenna could come in. So like, all right, Kieran McKenna, that could be one. But then he signs a new deal with Ipswich. So then it's like, all right, it's not going to be Kieran McKenna, it's not going to be Nagelsmann. All right, maybe Thomas Tuchel. That looks like the one who had the best CV in terms of trophies he's won. So you look at someone like Thomas Tuchel, and then before you know it, he's not an option because he's signed. He's had a meeting with INEOS according to the latest reports and decided that he doesn't want to come to Manchester United.
Is that what you're reading?
Sorry?
Is that what you're reading into it, that it's him that doesn't want the United job? Or was it that it was never offered? How are you seeing it played out?
It does. I don't know. I mean, if you're gonna speak to Thomas Tuchel, you know what he's like, right? You know what type of character he is. He's quite sort of headstrong. His reputation precedes him. Sorry, he's obviously coming from Bayern Munich. He's had a lot of success in his career. He's won a Champions League. He took PSG to a Champions League final. He won the Bundesliga in his first season at Bayern Munich. I know the wheels came off in his second season. He's won trophies with Paris Saint-Germain. He won a cup with Dortmund. He's had success. So you think he'd be the kind of manager that he'd have to be wooed almost. He'd have to have someone say to him, like, we want you. Yeah. Not, we want to give you an interview and you've got to convince us you're the right guy. Do you know what I mean? That to me would seem a bit like, really? If you're him, you'd be like, well, I've got to sort of tell you why I should be your manager. I know it's Manchester United, it's a huge job, but you always get the feeling with United. When we went after someone like Jose, we wanted him. When we went after Van Gaal, we wanted him. Even David Moyes, I remember being at the press conference where David Moyes said, basically Fergie said to him, you know, you're going to be the next Manchester United manager. It does seem like we go out and we get these managers, other than maybe Ten Hag, where it was sort of him and Poch. So Tuchel might look at it and go, well, look, if you're going to chat to me, you can offer me the job, fair enough, but I'm not.
I know what I'm worth.
Yeah, he might be, or he might, I don't know, he might look at it and go, look, I got sacked by Chelsea. I've just been more or less sacked from Bayern Munich. I need to try and get another job. And if I can get the Manchester United job, then that'd be a massive bonus for me.
But from his point of view, he might be boxing clever if he has turned down the job, is that how Manchester United are going to operate in the new season and the forthcoming years is a bit of an unknown quantity. With all these rumours that Wilcox is going to be telling the manager a sort of style or play or tactical, like how is that going to look? So for Tuchel, he might say, all right, well, I got sacked from Chelsea, I've been sacked by Bayern, my stock might drop if I take a job at Manchester United and they haven't got their shit together behind the scenes, which obviously that isn't the case at the moment. They don't know what's going on. So for him, it's like, well, this job will come around again. I have faith in my ability that it might come around again. And I think Tuchel, whilst I've made my opinions clear on Ten Hag's ability, if there was anyone that was going to replace him, for me, the number one was going to be Thomas Tuchel. So now it's like, where do we go? Are we sort of scraping the managerial bargain bucket, especially when you look at names of like Gareth Southgate being linked with him, which I've not seen one person that supports Manchester United across Twitter or in my like friend circle or WhatsApp group who is vocalising a want of the England manager to get the manager's job at Old Trafford. So I don't want that to happen, and I think that INEOS are going to have a PR disaster if they replace Ten Hag with Gareth Southgate, because they're going to be up against it anyway because of the treatment of Ten Hag, of having all these rumours happening whilst he's still the Manchester manager's job. It's left a very bad taste, hasn't it, with Manchester United fans?
No, I completely agree, and that's the issue you've got. I mean, the way it's been handled has been pretty bad. You look to say that INEOS are going to do things differently, and this just feels like this sort of a Glazer move almost. Yep. And plus, like we've mentioned, the names being suggested. I mean, Gareth Southgate, Jesus wept. Hit that like button, please, people. Over 50 people watching. We haven't got even to 10 likes yet. Smash a like. Loads of people in the chat. Mick Hullahorn, Miles, Jim Mack. Trico says, sacking Erik Ten Hag for Gareth Southgate would be completely fucking mental. You don't have to be best in class to see that. Baffled that the interest seems genuine. Jim and Dave moving like Burley. It does feel a bit like Todd Burley done it at Chelsea. Yeah. He made some strange decision. Him getting rid of Thomas Tuchel for Graham Potter was a massively...
He's another name that's been linked with United.
Move. Yeah, again, another one who sort of underwhelms you a little bit. Yeah, he did all right at Brighton, but then he got sacked at Chelsea. Is he the right man for the Manchester United job? Doesn't feel like it. Dan Kaiser says, evening guys, could the reports be all clickbait and they're trying to sort a new contract? Potentially. If you're, I think, it's been suggested if you're the agent of Thomas Tuchel and you say, oh, well, United have been in touch, then that might encourage other clubs to look at you. Or if you're, at another club, if you're, say, Kieran McKenna, and you're looking at maybe getting a better deal from Ipswich, if you say, oh, well, United have spoke to me, or your agent puts it out in the papers that United have spoke to you, then Ipswich are going to think, right, we're going to lose him to Manchester United, we need to act fast. I know a lot of that does go on. I don't know if that is the case. Miles says, if Mitten, the Athletic Boys, or Ornstein aren't saying it, take it as conjecture. I think that's a pretty decent rule of thumb. I do think that you have to look at who is saying some of these reports. Now, when it was Romano with the Thomas Tuchel one, I think Romano is pretty reliable. I know he gets a lot of stick, but I do think a lot of what he says is true. I think sometimes he can be a bit sort of vague in what he's saying, or he can tell you things that you already know, because he has that sort of almost the sort of the desire to put a story out constantly, a new one out, and sometimes it's an update that doesn't tell you anything. Yeah. So you see that, and then sometimes you feel, well, hang on a minute, you're just regurgitating old stories. But I do think he's pretty truthful. It's very rare, I think, he makes stuff up. But when I saw the Tuchel thing, I think Matt Lawton from the Times had also reported it. He's a very reliable journalist as well. So I don't think it's one of those where you go, oh, this is all just made up. No. I think when you see credible journalists who aren't really known for clickbait and stuff like that, who are coming out and saying, there is some truth to this, then there has to be something there. Do I think that everyone is making up the idea that United spoke to Tuchel, spoke to Kieran McKenna, spoke to, I think, was there a conversation with Pochettino as well? Rumours. Is this all nonsense? It does seem a bit of a stretch. Ross McPherson says, even if INEOS are interested in Southgate, do you honestly believe that Wilcox and Barada, who have both worked under Pep, honestly want Southgate over anyone else? Cannot see it, all clickbait. I hope you're right. And there is a part of me that thinks, like, surely Omar Barada must look at Gareth Southgate and know he is not the man to challenge Pep Guardiola in Manchester City. Yeah,
that's what you'd hope, wouldn't you, given the sort of, the manager that he's had before underneath him. The thing with Gareth Southgate, he's a yes man, and that might be what they want. And obviously, there's the whole link with Dan Ashworth, who's worked with Southgate. So now maybe he's Southgate Ashworth's man as and when he comes in, but he's not even arrived at the club there yet. So that's another, position that hasn't. Well, it will be filled in the future. But who is the? We're at the stage now where United shouldn't be looking at the best of a bad bunch on their list of managers that are available, because that's where we're at now, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. You're right.
It's do you gamble on somebody else, or do you give Ten Hag one last roll of the dice in his final year of his contract and see where it goes from there, or do you go again with somebody else? And that's where we're at. And I don't think, with the options, for me, probably Zerbi is probably at the top of that list.
Zerbi's a weird one, isn't it? Because there was talk that someone had paid this money to Brighton to get Zerbi, some sort of compensation, and then it all went quiet as to who that is, and then there was reports that that's not United, but now no one really seems 100% sure on what is going on with Zerbi.
Well, but that was weeks ago, so if it was United that did that, then why would they still interviewing Thomas Tuchel?
That does seem odd.
It doesn't make sense. And then Chelsea have got a different manager, so why would they pay him out?
It does seem weird. I mean, the thing with Zerbi is I think he's a decent manager. He's got a good record, not a great one. It doesn't stick around very long, does it?
Well,
I think his longest tenure is 3 years.
But wasn't it the war in Ukraine
that's one of his last 7 jobs, though, isn't it?
And then it was that Sassuolo, was it? But then he did really well with them. Like, he had one of the highest percentage passing games in Serie A, pushed them for, I think, top 4 spot in his final season there. If you look at his passing stats, or even the style of football they played under Zerbi, not this year, but the previous season, wasn't only one of the best in the Premier League. Across Europe, they were blowing away the stats in terms of some of the football they were playing. Not very good on the defensive mind is Brighton, but going forward, his style of football that he plays, aggressively pressing, likes to play wing backs. I think what he's done with Brighton, he's done a really good job. He's improved on what Potter was. Whereas I don't know. Well, Ten Hag, now that he's got the FA Cup, I think we can obviously say that he's improved on Solskjaer. But what was the floor that Manchester United could have hit this season? What's the lowest point feasibly in the league?
Oh, in the league?
Yeah. If at the beginning of any season, if I said to you, what's the lowest position United can finish this year?
I wouldn't have thought we'd have finished 8th, to be honest with you, because I've never seen that before. Well, I've seen it when I was a kid, but I've not seen it in the Premier League.
So we'd say 7 then, won't we? Because that's where...
That's the lowest we've finished.
What's the highest you'd expect to Manchester United?
Top.
Right,
first.
okay. So you got that sort of 7 places. Ten Hag finished bottom.
Yeah.
That. You look at Zerbi's Brighton.
Yeah. First
season in charge, he's the first manager to get Brighton into Europe. Got him into an FA Cup semi-final. Is that ahead of what Brighton should be expecting to do?
Yeah, definitely.
Right. This season, where did they finish in the league?
Is it 11th?
11th. Right. Okay. So where's the floor for Brighton? You'd say fighting relegation, really. The size of the club. Yeah. So what I'm saying is that the sort of the height of the ceiling and the floor for each manager, he's done a really good job. And people don't look at the last year. They give Ten Hag a reason regarding injuries, but Zerbi at Brighton, and this isn't me saying let's get Zerbi in. I'm just trying to put any rationale in case it is him that gets the job. He's done a really good job with that Brighton squad, and they had injuries.
Does it worry you the way the wheels came off a bit with him?
But they had really bad injuries.
I know they did, but like 1 win in his last 10 games was pretty shocking.
Yeah, towards the end of it, it was off. It's obvious that he was leaving.
I'm a bit wary of replacing one manager who's in decline, or supposed in decline, if that's why we did get rid of Ten Hag, with another one who of late seems to have lost his way a little bit. Do you know what I mean? Because you're not getting him on his upward trajectory, are you? You're getting someone who... I mean, you might look at it and say he's got injuries, it's because he's lost the dressing room or whatever, or he knew he was going or whatever. But Brighton, when they came to Old Trafford and beat us, were flying. And then sort of post-New Year, they haven't been that great. And I think towards the end of the season, they were pretty... I know they lost to us, but they probably played better than us, but they still lost. But the record went south, didn't it? And that's one of my concerns is... With Zerbi, I agree with the football side of things. I thought when they came to Old Trafford, I really enjoyed watching him. I thought he was probably a little bit unlucky at times, especially in the FA Cup semi-final.
They were battered us that day.
Yeah, and obviously losing your players constantly, and then recovering to still keep yourself competitive. You can't underestimate that. Obviously, he lost the likes of Casado. I think Trossard was there when Zerbi was there. they've lost loads of players, haven't they? And they keep sort of going again, and almost many times it looked like they're improving. But I just wonder with Zerbi, I just feel like there's too much of an unknown with him.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm by no means
too many question marks there.
When I'm sort of laying out the stall for Zerbi, that's not me saying that I want him to replace Ten Hag. I'm just saying that for me, he's probably the best of a bad bunch. But then you look at someone like Pochettino. What is the case for him taking over from Ten Hag? He was turning it around at Chelsea towards the end of the season.
Yeah,
he had a really good run.
Yeah,
I think. That
was like the opposite of Brian, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That was like the other way around.
It was. I was more surprised with the news that Poch got sacked than when it came out that Ten Hag was getting sacked before the FA Cup final, if I'm brutally honest. Yeah. I thought Poch was going to stay, but then again with the Chelsea owners, who knows?
It was, yeah, it seemed like, I think they did him dirty a little bit with Pochettino. I think they sort of, from what I gather, tried to sort of move the goalposts of his management and his arrangement with them. So it was like, well...
So it's not a football on the pitch decision, it's
no, it was more like,
scenes.
well, you can stay as the manager, but we're going to decide this, we're going to decide that, we're going to put, certain people in your backroom staff that you might not want. And he was like, I can't work like this, this is insane. So they came to a sort of mutual agreement, which kind of think saves face for everyone. Saves face for Pochettino because he says, I've not just been sacked because, we finished 6th. I've walked, or we've come to an agreement this isn't going to work out. Chelsea can say we've not just sacked a manager who's, I think he won, 10 of his last 14 games or something, or he lost 1 of his last 15 or something. His record was very good towards the end of the season. So it does save face. But it's weird with Chelsea, right? Because when you look at Potter, when you look at Poch, I mean, I don't want Graham Potter anyway, but I almost think like you can't really assess anyone on what happened at Chelsea under Todd Boehly.
Yeah.
I feel like, or maybe other than Lampard, who's just a disaster of a manager. Like, it was such a car crash there that I just feel like almost any manager would have failed there. It just feels like they're almost geared towards failure. Like, they've gone from the Abramovich, who was just ruthless, geared towards success. What's that? You've won the Champions League. I know they got rid of Tuchel and that, but with Di Matteo, he won the Champions League, and then he faltered the next season. They got rid of him. You look at someone like Ancelotti, probably the greatest manager post Sir Alex Ferguson. He won the double. Next season, he finished 2nd. He gets sacked the day he finishes 2nd. Like, they are ruthless, but it worked for them. For 20 years, they were the most successful club in England from like 2003 to 2023. But now they've gone like, instead of just being ruthless, whereas under Abramovich they were ruthless, but they had like behind the scenes and in terms of the squad and the structure, it was quite well oiled.
There was a rationale in terms of what they were doing.
It was just, and the MO was, if you don't, every season, if you falter, any season you falter, even if you're Jose and you've just won a title, the next season, if you've got us sitting in 15th, you're gone. That's what I meant
about like ceilings and floors. Do you know what I mean? With Abramovich, it's like if you're not winning the Premier League, you go in the next year. Yeah. And that's how it happens across the biggest clubs around Europe. If Ancelotti didn't win the Champions League or the La Liga, despite what he's done, he could go. Do you know what I mean?
Do you think we need to be more like that?
I think so. I think we've sort of been guilty of it in the past, and
because some clubs, I get your point, but some clubs aren't like that. Like Arsenal aren't like that, are they?
Arsenal have won 1 FA Cup in 20 years or whatever.
I know, but that's what they're not. They're not. I mean, they've stuck with.
City were ruthless. Until they got Pep.
Yeah,
they were ruthless.
Yeah, now they got rid of
Hughes,
2 managers.
Mancini, Pellegrini.
Liverpool have been a bit. They've stopped being ruthless, I think.
But that's because until they got Klopp. But once you've got that guy, then I don't think you can.
No, but even he got timed, didn't he? To think he lost 3 finals, and I think at one point they finished, was it 6, whatever. But they kind of stuck with him and it paid off. Yeah. But do you think like it's literally if you have one bad season, you need to go? Would you give it that? Or do you think you need to see?
I think now that, like I've said this in previous shows, the average lifespan for a manager across Europe is 18 months. That's what you get.
So if you're a manager now, right? If you're in charge of United, and let's say we bring someone in, do you think they have to hit the ground running?
I think.
Or would you say you can get away with finishing, say, 6th or 7th if the football's good?
I'm not doing this.
Because you could get Zerbi, just for sake of argument. He could come in and he could try and shift us from what we've been playing, which has been all over the gaff. I think we can all admit that, and I'm a massive Ten Hag fan, but I'll admit it. And he could get us playing beautiful, expansive football, but the results might not come straight away, and you could end up finishing 6th, and you say, I'm not disagreeing with you, I'm curious. You'd say, nah, like, we can't be waiting.
Well, 6, it depends.
Or is there a limit where you go, actually, I could stomach that?
Well, it depends on the previous year. When you're talking about the likes of Madrid being clinical, or Chelsea back in the day, or who else? Real Madrid or Man City. They were top second, weren't they, or third?
Yeah.
We're currently.
No, I mean So if Zerbi came in and
it'd have to be
6.
Yeah, 6, and then it'd be improving. You can't go backwards.
I just think I get your point. I think if Zerbi or whoever comes in, I think they've got to get Champions League football, you know.
It's got to be top 4 next season. I genuinely.
I think if INEOS are going to get rid of Ten Hag, which would be a big call, right? Regardless of whether you like the guy or not, whether you think he's got to go or whether you think he's got to stay, there is a case for him to stay because of the trophies he's won, regardless of whether you think it's strong enough. So if you replace him, you've got to replace him with someone who's going to come in and do something.
Yeah.
And I think if you get someone who comes in and just delivers more Europa League football, people are going to go, are you for fucking real?
And the pressure's on the person even more now due to the manner of what INEOS have been, acting. They've made it harder for themselves. It's been a massive PR disaster. It didn't need to come out like this. If they're going to replace him, they should have been tapping managers up well before the news leaked at the FA Cup. FA Cup comes, we do what we do. Next week, sack, replaced, and it should never, ever in a million years it getting dragged through this. For a company of INEOS' stature and everything that Sir Jim Ratcliffe was talking about when he first got involved with the club and the moves he's making behind the scenes, they must be pretty embarrassed by what's happening now. I know they don't have to sort of, respond to rumours or whatever, but they've had opportunities. Sir Jim Ratcliffe was interviewed post the FA Cup final win and didn't even mention Ten Hag by name in terms of what he'd just achieved. But I don't know how Ten Hag manages Manchester United next season with all this in the background, all this noise. Because if you're a manager that's supposed to go into a dressing room and go, listen, you're all going to be following my orders, you're going to do what I say. If so-and-so has a bad game, what's going to be their attitude knowing that their manager was nearly out of the door 2 months ago? I just don't know how you have such a fractured surface to sort of build a team on. But then you look at the FA Cup final and how they performed, which was by far the greatest performance that Ten Hag's put out. And for me, it felt like he'd save it till its last. And I know I've been massively critical of Ten Hag on it, and I think I've been justified in terms of his league performances. But now it's like I probably would err towards giving him one more season because there isn't an obvious candidate out there that doesn't seem as big a risk as keeping him.
That's the part of the problem as well, and it's beginning to feel like that as well. And I'll get into some of your comments. Hit that like button as well, please, people. It does feel a little bit like he'd be staying because there's no one else about rather than he'd be staying because INEOS like him.
Yeah.
It's got to that point.
How do you work amongst that sort of...
It's difficult because I think you're right, because I was talking about this on a podcast before, and it's like, if you're going to say, right, well, we back this manager, we like him, we rate him, he's our guy, then if I'm Erik Ten Hag, I'd say, all right, that's great, Alex. So why was you talking to Thomas Tuchel?
Yeah.
Why was you talking to Kieran McKenna? Why was you talking to Managerial Pochettino and Thomas Frank and all these other people if you think I'm so great? Do you know what I mean? Like, Martin Edwards didn't go and speak to, I don't know, Terry Venables in 1996 to go and see if he fancied taking on from Fergie, did it? Do you know what I mean? Like, you can't say, those two things can't be true. You can't say we really rate this manager and we were looking elsewhere. I think that's a little bit of a stretch, unless you were trying to word it as, our job was to do this due diligence where we looked at all the possibilities, including which managers were available, and we decided after speaking to everyone, you're the best. That would be a bit of a spin that I don't think anyone with half a brain would believe. I'll get in some comments and I'll come back to your point as well. Nomad Joe, De Zerbi's quite a divisive figure here, because Nomad Joe says, De Zerbi, why does finishing 11th get you the United job? But then someone else says, Ralph, 22, says, De Zerbi is a top coach who maximises the talent at his disposal. With a structure recruiting players, he can be very successful. Miles says, I think the structure Brighton have covered blemishes that Potter and De Zerbi have. So you see, Rocky says De Zerbi is a journeyman. He always sometimes has a fallout with the club owners. Someone else made a point as well. Miles says, to be fair, them missing Mitoma is a bit like us missing Bruno in terms of chance creators. I forgot how much Mitoma has been out.
Yeah.
Mitoma missed most of last season, well, half of last season. He played 19 games and he missed all those games I mentioned where they struggled, to be fair.
Did you see the actual interview with De Zerbi after he got injured? I think it was after he got injured. And someone said, well, how much are you going to miss him in a press conference? And De Zerbi said, well, but this is where we have to sort of rely on the players around him to sort of fill in his boots, but I'm not going to be one of these managers that blames injuries.
Right. It's kind of, That's kind of saying I'm not going to be one of those managers blames injuries whilst pointing to the fact you've got injuries.
No, somebody mentioned it to him. He did, and he goes, "I'm not going to whinge about having injuries."
I feel like when managers say that though, that is kind of them reminding you they've got injuries.
He was asked the question.
Yeah, but I'm not going to moan about the fact I've got loads of injuries. Kind of feels like you're sort of reminding everyone you have got injuries. Do you know what I mean?
No, he would mention it in terms to the guy.
I know, but don't you feel like that's the kind of way of
Why don't you just like him?
I'm just saying, like, when managers say that, I always feel like they're going, look, I'm not going to moan about the injuries I've got. Yeah. And that is the kind of way, look, I'm reminding you all, I've got, I know, I'm not going to talk about my workload. Yeah, I'm not going to say, you know what I mean? Like, I get your point, like, he didn't ask the question, he's got asked it, he's answered it. But I also feel like it's just kind of a little bit of a way of saying, look, I've got injuries. Listen, I know with Brighton, it's not just about the results as well, because I saw him against Liverpool at Anfield, and I thought they played some great football, and they were very unlucky not to get some out of that game. And, you know, they can and have played some fantastic football. And I always think that a manager at a sort of club like Brighton, no respect to him, we've got very limited resources, who can keep them well away from relegation and mid-table or even above, deserves a lot of credit, because that is not an easy task at all. And we've seen how quickly clubs can unravel with one bad appointment or selling one player too many. You look at Southampton as a prime example. They were sort of stable. They had this sort of massive turnover of players where players come through the academy or they buy players like the likes of Vertonghen or Sadio Mane or Virgil van Dijk. And then they move them on, and then they replace them, and it was, you know, all gravy. And then they start following before you know you're relegated, and that can happen to any club. So I don't want to dismiss what Zerbi's done at Brighton. The big question for me is it too much of a leap to go from somewhere like Brighton, where you've done what you've done, and then go to Manchester United, where the expectation is no longer just stability or keeping them competitive or keeping them in the top half of the table, whatever. The expectation is, yes, you've got lots more resources, but you better finish in that top four against, let's not forget as well, next season, Newcastle are going to have like aspirations of top four. Arsenal are going to be in the top four, unfortunately. I don't see them dropping out of the top four, not with the age of their squad and the performances we've seen over the last 2 seasons. Pains me to say it, but barring a 115 charge punishment, City aren't going anywhere. Then you've got Chelsea, who, you know, look like they were getting their act together, and if they get the right manager, and I know it's a big if, they'll be there or thereabouts. Spurs under Ange Postecoglou, you'd expect them to be there or thereabouts, wouldn't you? The Scousers as well, I don't even mention them already, I don't think I have. So you've got 6 teams there.
It should be the most competitive.
Yeah, it's going to be hard, isn't it? For whoever comes in, whether that's Ten Hag or anyone else.
What you were talking before and about Poch at Chelsea and how it's unfair to sort of judge his time there, given the sort of calamity that's going on upstairs at Stamford Bridge before they sort of separate ways. I thought what he did at Southampton was massively impressive.
Oh yeah,
Poch.
100%.
And despite him not winning anything, he's been Spurs' most successful manager, got him to a Champions League final.
Yeah.
And the football they were playing at Spurs,
certainly Premier League area.
Yeah, and the football they were playing was brilliant. So that's 2 experiences at them 2 clubs in the Premier League. He's gone to PSG, which again, chews and spits great managers out. And, you know, with the whole Leonardo upstairs, I think it was when Poch was there was all the issues. And I think Tuchel himself had also fell out with the people at PSG. They go through managers. Is that similar to sort of the Chelsea situation? Where do you base Poch in this scraping the managerial barrel? I say De Zerbi's probably more up and coming, but Poch, in terms of what he's done at Southampton and Spurs, and given that Chelsea's a little bit of an unknown quantity, we've probably got higher stock, but it's, I don't know, where do you like? Would you have Poch ahead of De Zerbi if it was going to be one of the 2?
Yeah, probably.
I wanted Poch before Ten Hag, if I'm putting myself out there.
I don't know. I don't know, actually, because the thing that I always sort of hold on to is this hope. And there's a hope that United could win a title with this manager, right? And a lot of the time it is a hope rather than expectation. And I think with some managers, it's the unknown that helps them, right?
Yeah.
Like with De Zerbi, there's a bit of the unknown. What could De Zerbi do with some resources? Could he actually be that guy? That if you actually gave him a £200 million budget, all right, he didn't spend that money himself, but those above him did, and you gave him a squad full of internationals who have played in the Champions League and have, you know, been big money signings or have come through the academy at Manchester United and won the FA Youth Cup and all the rest of it, could he actually be that manager who's good enough to win a title? Like, he might be. Do I think Poch is? I think we almost know he isn't. I think there's a ceiling with Poch. I think he's a good manager. I don't think he's quite got it. And I think back to those big games where I think just tactically, sometimes as a manager, you get your team over the line. I think, and I know, you can go, a bit harsh or whatever. I think back to the FA Cup semi-final against Jose. I think back to the Champions League against the Scousers. They just didn't turn up. They just didn't. I looked one or two other games in that run-in when it was them and Leicester going for the title, and I think they unravelled Spurs.
Yeah, they just
unravelled. There was one game at home they lost later. I can't remember who it was. They lost that, and then the game against Chelsea, the one everyone focuses on because their heads went. But they lost the league before that. It got to that. And I think, I was having this argument with someone in the comments on the video this morning, because I sort of said about Pochettino, I said one of the criticisms he gets, and I've been guilty of calling him saying this, and I think there's some in it, is he came third in a 2-horse race when it was him in Leicester and ended up coming behind Arsenal. That is a bit of a black mark on him. I think that was an opportunity then. If he'd have won the title, which he could have done that season, you'd be talking about Mauricio Pochettino completely differently, and I think everyone would have wanted him.
Everyone expected him to be the next, following the footsteps of a Pep.
Yeah.
Do you know what 100%. I mean? Like that's what he was earmarked for.
And I think just didn't quite have that. And even when he went to PSG, people go, oh, he went to PSG and he didn't win the title in his first, but that's not his fault. He got there with 21 games left to go, and they lost 4 of them, including 3 at home, including the one to Lille at home, which did for him for the title. He only lost the title by 1 point. It's those fine margins, I think, tactically as a manager, where you can go. And I think in terms of man management, I think players like him. I've spoke to Steve, interviewed him and said he's great. I spoke to some of the people that have been.
His man management skills.
Yeah,
great,
everyone can buy into it.
It's the sort of the steel that you need.
Did you ever
instill.
think in that semi-final when it was Jose versus him that Jose would lose out to him?
No,
I didn't. Even when they went ahead, I thought Jose will win this, and he did, didn't he?
Yeah,
obviously he did. He fucking hell, everyone knows he did. But you kind of knew. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I think that was a disappointing. Like, and I think I like Mauricio Pochettino. I think he's a good guy. But like when he got beat. Ironically beat Ten Hag's Ajax in that semi-final, and then you're looking to head towards that final, and he was crying, after the game. And I think, and there's nothing wrong with crying. I get the emotions of it, but I just think there's a part of me that was feeling like it's almost like we've got to the final. It's enough now. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And I feel like sometimes you need a manager to be a bit more like, job's not fucking done. Do you know what I mean?
Where's your stones?
Do you know what I mean? I'm not having to dig at anyone for crying. I'm not at all. There's nothing wrong with that. I just mean like, as a manager, you're like, look. We've won the semi-final, fantastic. The job is
not done yet.
Fergie didn't go. We've won the semi-final. The job's done.
It's quite Scouse that.
Yeah, it is. Do you know what I mean? It's we want to win it. And I think when they got to that final, they didn't turn up at all.
No, and ruined a lot of people's holiday. Well, my holiday. I was on holiday.
It was horrible. I had it on.
That's unforgivable. Actually, I don't think you can be the United manager if you've handed Liverpool a Champions League title, but. Okay, he's an early man, would you say, Pochettino? Is that the best way to sort of assess him?
It's weird because when you say nearly man, I think that sounds a little bit harsh, but I think there's kind of a truth to it.
Is it contender?
Yeah, I think that's a truth to it.
Rather than the champion.
Yeah, no, I think you're right.
But even though he couldn't get us to the promised land, hypothetically, do you think that he could take us back to the top 4?
That's the question. That's a good question. And I think that's one that INEOS might look at and go, long term, because you've got to remember, right, everyone looks at it, and you just nailed it before, you said the average tenure of a manager is 18 months.
Yeah.
There's not necessarily INEOS come in and go, this is our guy for the next 5 years. You mentioned City before. Now, I hate Manchester City, and I hope they get done for all these charges. But when they came in, they took over, Mark Hughes was the manager, they obviously thought, he's not our guy. Forget him. They brought in Mancini. After a few years, when Mancini followed, they got rid of him, brought in Pellegrini was never a long-term option for them.
He was a stopgap.
Yeah. And sometimes you do that. Sometimes you go, look, we have to get back in the Champions League. We have to get competing in this Champions League. Get the Champions League money in, which frees up more FFP money. Get players attracted to the fact we're a Champions League club again. Just move the club forward in that manner. Poch can come in and he could do that.
Yeah.
We feel confident he could be that guy for the next, say, 2 to 3 years.
Just due to his man management skills. You never look at Ten Hag.
Yeah.
A bit of his man management skills are a little bit off.
I think him and Poch are almost the opposite.
Yeah.
I think tactically, not always.
Why can't we blend them?
I know. But you saw it in the FA Cup final. Beating Pep Guardiola in the final is no mean feat. Almost no one has ever done it. Like, he's lost something like 2 out of 20 odd finals or something stupid. It's ridiculous, or 3. Like, Poch couldn't do it when he went up against him. I think he was unlucky, to be honest with you, but he couldn't do it. I think it was in the semi-final, sorry, he played him. So you can't ignore that, but then you've got all those games where you need a better man manager to get the best out of certain players or whatever. And it just feels like at times, I like Ten Hag and I want him to stay, but that is something that he's been lacking in it. There's these reports out that certain players just find him a little bit cold at times. And you don't get everything from a press conference. I'm not pretending you do. But I sometimes feel a little bit like Erik Ten Hag. I don't think aloof is the right word, because I've seen him in pre-season when he's been very friendly and he's had a laugh and all that. I just think he's a little bit more, I think Joe Smith always uses the word stoic.
Yeah.
Rather than with Poch. Everyone I've spoke to who's met Pochettino says he's hugely charismatic and likeable.
Well, I think a lot of it's down to the culture as well. I mean, Dutch people, by their very nature, the way they talk and stuff, they're not like as warm. I think when like people used to say about Louis van Gaal and Ronald de Boer when he came over, and who was the guy at Crystal? Koeman as well was also Martin Jol at Spurs. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? But whereas Pochettino, is a very sort of likeable chap. But do you think that? Would you take Poch for 18 months with a view to getting somebody else later down the line and see how it goes? Is that the gamble worth taking ahead of giving Ten Hag FA Cup, Carabao the previous, worst league position in Premier League history, to build on that for one last season? Do you roll the dice for Poch for 9 months to 18?
I wouldn't roll the dice for Poch.
Could you understand that?
I couldn't. I get it. I wouldn't. And I
would
wouldn't.
you go Poch ahead of Zerbi though?
It's a good question.
Is Poch a bigger gamble than Zerbi?
No, I think Zerbi's a bigger gamble
because it's such an unknown.
Yeah, but I think I'm more inclined to prefer a bigger gamble.
If you're getting Zerbi, I think that's probably with the hope that he's the one.
He's the next big manager.
He's the next big manager, whereas Pochettino would be putting, I don't know, some newspaper down a hole in your wall while you get the
He's the Pellegrini.
The Pellegrini
appointment, innit? He's the safe pair of hands, has the pedigree.
And if it works, it works, but we know it's not.
Yeah. And I think Pochettino, I think he could do well enough so that United fans didn't lose their minds. I think if you're sort of kicking around 4th and 5th or whatever, as United, you're not going to be buzzing, but you're not going to be like, oh my God, this is a disaster. So I understand that, like, INEOS might look at it and go, look, this guy is a safe pair of hands, especially if we're going to get rid of a manager who, as our poll shows, is quite popular. Yeah. Erik Ten Hag. 83% of people say he should be given.
That's what I mean. But
so you have to get someone in who's going to at least get fans relatively excited, or fans can buy into it, which is why I think someone like Gareth Southgate, for example, would be a massive disaster on every single front, because no one really wants him. You're getting rid of a manager who, despite his flaws, is pretty popular amongst the fan base, because we've just beat City in the FA Cup final.
It's only, and I think more so than the FA Cup, to increase his popularity, the way he's been treated with that big league before, I think that's increased it even more.
I agree. I think his stock has actually risen since the FA Cup final.
If he had got sacked after the FA Cup and the news hadn't have leaked, I don't think it'd have been as bad as it has now.
No, I think now it's been borderline.
And it's an untenable position that he's going to find himself in next season if he's still a Man United job.
Listen, whether you rate Erik Ten Hag or not, and 83% of you do, I think no one would want to see a manager who's just won what he's won for United. It'd be treated like, I didn't like it when Louis van Gaal got sacked basically the same day he won the FA Cup against Palace, and I won't like seeing it if Erik Ten Hag does go the way he's going to go. One final one from you then. If it's your choice next season, I know I'll put you on the spot a few times. You're the kiss of death, by the way. Every time you pick a manager, he goes out of work the next, he gets another job. Yeah. The next, I've asked you this about 5 times the last 5 weeks. Yeah, and every time you come up with a new manager, it's like a week later he signs a deal somewhere. At the moment in time, if looking at who's available, who would you prefer?
Are we going off the basis that Ten Hag's getting sacked?
Oh no, you can keep him if you want. If you've got to the point where
is it my choice, or what do I think is going to happen? What do you want?
Do both.
Okay, so I think Ten Hag's got to go on the basis that I don't see any road back, given all the rumours, and I think it'll just be a really difficult job next year.
Okay.
Who'd come in? I think that after our conversation about Poch now, I think that could be a short-term thing with a view next season, and then I don't know who it'd be then. To be absolutely honest, I don't know who like. You don't know who's going to come.
Well, you don't like. The thing is, without getting too cliche heavy, a year is a long time in football. You could have a year where, Kieran McKenna could win the Premier League.
Yeah, but who's the last? Who's the last great manager to come? See if you look at.
I don't think he's going to win the Premier League, by the way, Kieran McKenna. I'm just exaggerating.
What's the four heads in America called?
The four heads in America?
Not the four heads of America. Mount Rushmore. So if you look at the... I don't
know what's scarier, the fact that you described that, the fact that I understood what you meant. I mean, you've known each other a bit too long.
That's friendship for you. So if you were saying maybe what, Ancelotti, Pep, Klopp, who else would be one of the great?
Obviously, we're talking... You're not counting Fergie.
I'm not counting Fergie.
Obviously, I just want to put that out there. Yeah, I think that's fair.
Okay, right. Who's come after them that's a great manager? Alonso? He's not getting the United job.
No.
Because he's a Scouser.
No. I keep saying this to people, and people are having it. He will not come to United.
I don't want him at United. No. It could be as successful as he wants to be.
Yeah. He might have been Liverpool's greatest ever midfielder, but he will not come to United. Right. So Alonso, he's one.
Yeah. Who else has sort of set the world alight? I'll tell you who's probably just underneath it, and I think that might be an option. Poch for 9 months, Emery following year.
Unai Emery's a good manager,
That's what I mean, underneath.
Yeah. But I don't know. I think Unai Emery loves Villa. I think he does. I think he loves
Dwight
Villa.
York loved Villa.
No, yeah. But obviously when we got Dwight York, he was like, come and win a treble with us. I think Emery, the way he was treated by the media, by Arsenal, wasn't particularly nice or good. He's gone to Villa. They've backed him quite well. He seems happy there, and he's got him into the Champions League for the first time since the European Cup.
That's an amazing feat.
It is. We're going to wrap it up there. So there, Scotty's give us his options. Did
you give your answer?
I was
Ten Hag in.
Ten Hag in. If we do get rid of Erik Ten Hag, then
Southgate. Right. Okay.
Took the words out of my mouth. Yeah, I'll be putting my waistcoat on as you see me in the Stretford end.
Who them?
Out of the options available, I'd probably go Zerbi, but it's not someone who's massively inspiring me. I mean, I like Poch, but I don't think he's going to win you anything at all.
No.
Do you know what I mean? The best you're going to get, I think, is top 4.
It's mad though.
It's good, but it's not. I don't get up in the morning and think, oh, good,
remember when Fergie was, the news came out that he was leaving and we'd not found out Moyes was replacing him, and you used to look across Europe and they'd be like, well, I want the best in Germany, I want the best in Spain, the best in Italy. And now we're looking at Brighton's manager, England's manager.
Brentford, we've not even mentioned Thomas Frank, who has been linked with the job. Yeah. Let's not forget Thomas Frank. No disrespect to him. Again, another one. He's just finished 16th.
Do you know he used to work in a creche? He used to run a kindergarten, which might go down pretty well at Old Trafford. I'm not joking. Like about a few years ago, he was working in a kindergarten.
Well, yeah, that'll serve you well when you get in our dressing room if he makes it. Big thank you, Solos in the chat. Ross McPherson, Smithy, Mick Hollahorn, Cowboy. Just to give you the update on the poll, it's 85% said yes, Erik Ten Hag should be manager next season. 15% said no. Also, Heaven Soul says Rob Dawson reporting that Ashworth is after a yes man manager who will accept the things he's told to do and sign. Yeah, that might be the case.
That might be the case.
It isn't. That's been Scotty. I've been Motty. Don't forget, if you're not doing already, in fact, let me just do a little thing.
Yeah, while he gets that link to the Patreon, make sure you're subscribing and liking. Very, very close to 11,000. We've got some brilliant partnerships that we're going to be talking about in a few weeks. And if you've got social media, I don't know many people. Do people share YouTube videos on their social media?
Why have you turned into my grandma? What are you on about? Do people share YouTube videos?
Do people share our YouTube videos?
You know they do.
Do people share? I don't think they share it enough.
Right, okay.
Tired of it.
You want to get on that internet. It's internet's what you want to do.
That dial-up.
Yeah, go and click on the Patreon if you can. We appreciate your support. It helps keep the lights on. Back later on this week. Got more extra content coming up. That's been Scotty. I've been Motty. You've been brilliant. Thanks for watching.